Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. Before we get into the card for today, I wanted to announce the giveaway winners. Here are the 5 people that were randomly selected to receive a card. If you see your name on the list here, if you could just send me either a private message through YouTube or an email with your address, I will send you your card as soon as possible. I wanted to thank everyone that did leave a comment on my 100 subscriber video. It was so nice to hear from everyone, and you all said such nice things. Thank you very much. For today's card, I'm going to be using the Dragon Wishes set by Mama Elephant again. And I'm going to be making another interactive card. I made an interactive card last week. I don't know if you saw it, but this one's going to be a little bit different, a slightly different take on it. I started out with a sheet of Bristol smooth paper, and I used my Misty tool to stamp out these dragons and the cake, and I'm going to color them in with my Arteza markers. I'm only going to show the coloring for the first dragon because I figure once you see the coloring on one dragon, you kind of can see how I did all the coloring. I just used different colors and did the same exact thing. I have my Tim Holtz water brush out because these markers are watercolor markers, so I use the water to blend out the different colors. If you'd like to see more about how I color with the Arteza markers, I'll put a little link in the corner to my video all about coloring with these markers. So I colored this first little guy using all green tones and a little bit of peachy orange for the wings and tummy. And then the other 3 dragons, I'm going to color one of them in all purple tones, one of them in blue tones, and one of them in orange tones. After that, I came in with a darker shade of each tone, and I did little spots along the back of each dragon. As you can see, I did color in the cake, but I wasn't really happy with the way it turned out. So I ended up stamping another cake and I colored that one in, and I was much happier with the results there. Once I was done with all of the coloring, I used some scissors to fussy cut all of these images out. I very rarely buy the die sets that go with my stamps, and that's just because I can't really afford them. They're kind of expensive for me, and it's just not something I can do. I wish I could, because it would make things a lot easier, but I don't mind just fussy cutting things. The background that I did for this card is going to be pretty simple. I taped a piece of Canson watercolor paper down to a board, and I used fossilized amber Distress Oxide ink all along the top, and then on the bottom I'm going to come in with some worn lipstick Distress Oxide ink. When these 2 colors blend together, it makes a very pretty orange, but for this particular card, I didn't want them to blend too much, so I just put a very small amount of warm lipstick along the bottom there. I took my water bottle and I put in little dabs of water, and this was very controlled. I did not splatter them, I did not drop them or flick them. I wanted them to be very much where I wanted them to be, which most of the time I don't do this. Most of the time I just kind of flick it on there and let it go wherever. But for some reason today I just wanted to be in control. After I was done using the paper towel to lift up the color from those drops, I misted the whole paper with water, and then I just let it air dry. And then I used my paper trimmer and I trimmed it down to card size. And now I'm cutting a hole out of the middle of it with a circle die. I used painter's tape to tape this die on, but if I were to do it again, I would use a Post-it because it's much easier to work with and it's not nearly as likely to ruin your paper. As you can see, I cut a little circle out of that bigger circle because this is going to be like a spinner card, not like the one I did last time. You'll see. The next thing that I did was I made this ring using my Big Shot. And what I did was the outer circle of this ring is slightly bigger than the circle on my background. And the inner circle of this is slightly smaller than that inner circle from my card. And I went over the whole thing with my fossilized amber Distress Oxide ink so that it would match the color of the background. Using that ring as a guide, I placed foam tape all around the background, leaving room for that ring that I just made. That ring is the spinner for this card. And so I'm not using like a penny this time, I'm using that ring. And there needs to be room for that ring to go there and be able to spin. So you need to like build your foam tape around it. And I did do 2 layers of foam tape here. Let me just give you a little tip, something that I was not super careful with. When you create a ring like that for this kind of card, you want that inner circle to be like as much as possible in the center as you can get it, because mine was a little off to the side and it kind of made spinning a little bit harder, but it still worked out. I put 2 layers of foam tape in the middle there so that I could add my inner circle. The next thing that I did was I started adding my spinner elements. So I put 2 layers of foam tape under each one of these pieces, and I'm just going to kind of lay out my dragons around the circle. I just want to say now, if I were to recreate this card, I would shift up this entire spinner area towards the top of the card so that I'd have more room on the bottom for a sentiment. I wasn't thinking about it when I was planning this card because I didn't really plan it that long. I just kind of started and went with it. But when I get to the sentiment, it's very difficult to find a nice looking spot to put that sentiment. So now you can see kind of how this card works. All of the dragons spin around that circle on the ring. I took the cake that I colored and I used my Tombow glue and I glued it right in the center there because this is going to be a birthday card. Next I'm going to work on my sentiment. I took a piece of black paper and I prepped it with my powder tool for some heat embossing. The sentiment that I chose says, "It's your birthday, light up the candles," and I heat embossed that using a white embossing powder. You can kind of see now what I meant about shifting that whole spinner circle up towards the top, because if it was up towards the top, then I'd be able to put this in this sentiment in the center on the bottom, and I think that would have looked more aesthetically pleasing, but I made it work and I kind of just put it off to the side there on the bottom. It works for what it is, but I really wish that I had thought about this in advance. At this point, I realized that I wanted my spinner to have a few more elements. I really wanted it to be full. So I took my Hero Arts Infinity Cloud die set and I cut out 4 of the smallest cloud using white paper, and I took those and just filled in the center in between each of the dragons. I went over each of the clouds with my Wink of Stella brush. I almost always do this with clouds. I just really want them to be glittery for some reason. Next, I used a micron pen to go over some of the lines from the cake, and this is just because they were a little bit dull. I think that my black ink pad is finally drying out, which is like I've had it for like 5 or 6 years, maybe longer, so it's lasted quite a while. To finish up this card, I used some sequins. I used pink ones, white ones, and yellow ones, and I just glued those down with my Tombow glue. After all of that, this spinner card is going to be finished. So that's another way that you can do a spinner card. If you're just spinning one element around, then I think that the penny spinner is the best way to go. But if you want multiple images spinning around, like in this card, then I think the ring is a really great option. So there you can see how it spins around when it's all done and complete. Thank you for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed this take on a spinner card. All of the supplies that I used can be found in the description down below. I'll be back with a new video on Wednesday. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day today.